It's football. I've been watching it for 40 years.
Are you kidding me?
You're listening to Winning Cures Everything.
Game day, baby. Wake up or get out.
Here's your host,
A confident young man, a superb athlete.
Gary Seegers.
Welcome in, Winning Cures Everything. It is the Sunday, October 16th edition of the show. It's the Week 7 college football reaction and recap show. What an unbelievable piece of theater we had yesterday in the college football world. Fantastic games all around. Just a mind-blowing good time from noon Eastern all the way through basically midnight last night with USC and Utah. I mean, we had banger games all day. If you're watching, obviously, you can see the color changing on my face. I can't figure out how to get this stupid light, I don't know, to stop fading. I don't know what it's doing. It's like it's switching back and forth between colors. I got one on my left side that is bright. I got one on my right side that is changing colors. And we're just going to roll with it, and we will figure it out as we go. But I turned that thing on this morning, and it's doing whatever. So the show is brought to you each and every time out by BetUS. It is America's favorite sports book since 1994. That's right. They've been doing this a very, very long time. They are, in fact, where the game begins. You need to go and check them out. BetUS. Very awesome. Zoom Play jumps in. First to like and comment. Go Frogs. Yes, TCU. Fantastic comeback yesterday. We're going to talk about that one. Obviously, we're going to talk about old Rocky Top. We are going to talk about quite a bit. What in the world is, oh, God bless. We've got all kind of stuff. So, yes, all of the emotes and everything is all good, but this Nightbot thing that has been installed, I got to figure it out. There's a lot that I'm trying to figure out with this show right now. So we will figure it out as we go along. What an absolute beautiful Saturday we had. All across the country, fantastic games, unbelievable. A lot of teams that were in really must-win situations, did awesome things. Awesome things. Got wins when they needed them. Michigan State, West Virginia, of course, on Thursday night. There was just awesome stuff from top to bottom. So why don't we go ahead and dive into it, and let's discuss. Let's go on and hit the first one on the board. Tennessee 52, Alabama 49. Now let's start off with this. Cheers to Tennessee for being able to double a nil. I'll have to finish watching after church. Yeah, this is the college football Sunday service, but I totally understand you going and doing your thing. If you're Alabama, you know that you have to kick that field goal with no time left on the clock, right? Like that's the situation that they got themselves into. And I understand that the advantage was to pass the football at the end of the game. Like, I get that. Good morning, Zone 6 jumps in. You threw 3 straight passes that were all incomplete, which left plenty of time on the clock for Tennessee to be able to drive down the field and kick that field goal. Now, obviously, there were other things in the game that led to that specific point. But what I'm saying is, you knew at the very end there, you were probably, if you didn't get any more yardage, you were going to have to find a way to run the rest of that clock down. They did a good job early of doing that, of letting the clock run, but at the very end, they did not run off enough time. Now, here's the reason why you don't run off enough time, right? It's the fact that your defense can't stop anybody. Like, they could not stop Tennessee. Just unbelievable. Like, Jalen Hyatt and what he did against that defense, nobody could stop him. He was absolutely unstoppable all day. Let's go on and pull up the stats here. We'll pull it up on the screen so that you can actually see what we're talking about. Box score here, Jalen Hyatt, 6 receptions for 207 yards and 5 touchdowns. What? I mean, are we serious? Like, it's multiple, like, 50, 60, 70 yarders. The Alabama secondary had no answer for him. As far as the others go, Hendon Hooker, 21 out of 30. 5 touchdowns, all of them to Hyatt. He did have the 1 interception, his first in 260 attempts, if I'm not mistaken. 385 yards, not bad. Bryce Young on the other side, 35 out of 52, 455 yards, 2 touchdowns. He did carry the ball 4 times, quote unquote, for negative 4 yards. But you look at this, and I mean, it's just, you see all the different guys that caught passes. It was just all over the place. And yet, you still had Alabama players that dropped passes. Specifically, Jahmyr Gibbs, towards the end of the game, had one that just hit him right in the hands that was supposed to be basically effectively a run. And it just bounced off of his hands. I mean, it's just weird stuff. There was one that I believe Trayshawn Holden dropped early on. Just mistake after mistake after mistake. Let's look at the actual numbers here, and I'll pull up game on paper so that you can see, how this thing shifted. And you look at the win probability, you look at the expected points, Alabama started off horribly. And that's where this game actually got twisted, right? You always knew that Alabama was going to be able to throw on that volunteer secondary. What we didn't realize was the fact that at some point, you had to be able to get a stop, right? And yes, they got stopped in a couple of spots. But when they did not take advantage, right? They did get a stop in the first half, and Tennessee punched the ball. And, of course, the fumble on the punt, which was technically a fair catch that the Alabama player, whoever it was, number 34, thought that the Alabama player had touched it and went over to try and recover it and was hit from behind immediately, fumbles the ball, Tennessee recovers, short field, bang, bang, touchdown. Anthony jumps in. Hey, Gary, big fan over in England. Enjoy all the stuff you do. What a great weekend of college ball. Yes. Hey, I appreciate you being in England watching this thing. I appreciate it. So, for sure, yes, a great day of ball. Let's go through the stats here. So, Tennessee won yards per play, 8.1 to 6.9. By the way, they were the first team in over a decade to average over 8 yards per play against the Nick Saban defense. Just nuts. Third downs, Tennessee won 50 to 46%. Tennessee won rushing, 182 to 114. Alabama won yards. Now, the rushing stat might have had a little bit to do with the fact that Alabama was down 21 to 7, and they were down 28 to 10 early in that game. So you had to pass to come back. So it kind of shifts the script a little bit, right? Zone 6, Gibbs is a monster even with that huge draw. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, Gibbs, he's a big reason why they were even in the ballgame. Alabama did win total yardage, 569 to 567. They ran 13 more plays, 83 to 70. Alabama actually won the turnover battle, like 2-1, which is kind of nuts. Tennessee also had 2 fourth down failures, so that was something. Alabama won drive points, which makes sense because Tennessee had so many short fields, right? Alabama was helped by that late fumble return where you could tell that Tennessee was starting to press just a little bit. Like they had to start thinking about it because they had gotten down 35 to 34, and it was a tighter game than they had anticipated. You look at this, the biggest thing here was the penalties for Alabama, and it started immediately. I'm talking just as quick as this thing started. The first kickoff, you get holding calls. There was a drive in the first half. It was in the first quarter where Alabama had 4 penalties that dropped them all the way back inside their own 2-yard line. It shifts field position. It gives Tennessee an edge up. It was just bonkers. And it's something that you do not typically see from a Nick Saban team. And that's what was really interesting to watch is how flustered this team got. And they do it all the time on the road, right? It appears to happen frequently. They had 15 penalties against Texas. They had 17 against Tennessee today. In 2019, back a few years ago, they had 13 against Auburn. Those are the top 3 as far as penalties are concerned in the Nick Saban era. Just nuts. This is the most points that has been scored against Alabama since 1907. Sewanee actually scored 54 points in that game. 52 is a bonkers number, especially without going to overtime. I can't even figure out what the situation was. So yeah, lots of penalties against Alabama, and there were some against Tennessee as well. I mean, there's one that actually kept a drive going for Alabama. So yes, it was pretty balanced as far as the penalties were concerned. You know, you look at these. Jace McClellan only got 3 carries. He did have 3 catches in this game. There were numerous opportunities for this team, for Alabama, to win this game, and they just made mistake after mistake after mistake after getting this game back to being within a reasonable distance, right? It was a close game, and they did not make the plays to win the game. So the field goal, it did remind me of 1990 when Tennessee missed a field goal in 1990 with Johnny Majors, and Alabama blocked it and was able to bat it back far enough, and they recovered it to where they could attempt a game-winning field goal. So they won that one 9-6. Tennessee was ranked number 3 in the country at that point. Alabama already had 3 losses on the season. So that was it was a bit of, I'm not going to say karmic, but it did make you think back. Like, this is the exact opposite of that, you know? Alabama beating Georgia in 2017 was much the same way that Georgia beat Alabama in 2007. Like, it's just time is a circle, right? You look at the stats on the sheet. I'm telling you, we could spend an hour on this game alone, so we're not going to do that. But you look at the page that's actually on your screen right now, and the green is good, the purple is bad. Explosive play rate, neither team had a big explosive play rate, which is bonkers when you think about it. But Tennessee didn't have explosive plays that, like, drove them down the field. They had explosive plays that scored, and that's the biggest difference. Alabama 7% explosive, Tennessee 6%. Defensive run stuff rate, Alabama 8%, Tennessee 17%. Havoc rate, Tennessee 4%, Alabama 7%. The defenses did nothing. And Alabama's third down success rate was putrid. 38% success rate on third down, Tennessee 62%. This was 2 offenses that just went back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Like, once the game settled down, they could not stop each other. That just bottom line. You look at the game drive here, the play-by-play, you will see. So Tennessee scored, on every drive other than the end of the half and the one where they turned it over on downs towards the end of the first half. In the second half, they turned it over on downs early, even though they had already driven the ball over into Alabama territory. Alabama came back, tied the game. Tennessee scored in 3 plays. Alabama came back, 12 plays, 75 yards. Tennessee throws an interception, and then Alabama does not take advantage of it. Right? Alabama had taken the lead, and they did not take advantage of the turnover from Hendon Hooker. It was the first in 260 attempts. It was just crazy. So then Tennessee comes back out, 3 plays, 94 yards, touchdown. I mean, explosive play again. Let's see, it was Jalen. Where are we? 78-yard pass to Jalen Hyatt. Yep. So that's it. I mean, it was just touchdown, fumble return, touchdown, missed field goal, and the game-winning field goal. So props to Tennessee. That was an incredible scene. They have been waiting on that for it feels like a billion years, but 15 years, long time in a rivalry for you to not get a win. And I know that Michigan knows about this, and any win that you can get is a good win. This is one where you got to figure out what it is that Alabama is, right? Is Alabama a good team? Are they just completely flawed? We know that they've got good players. I think it says a lot about the team that they were able to come back in this. I think it says a lot about Tennessee that they were able to take a shot late in this and still came out with the win, right? They got a lot of advantages in the first half. A lot of things went their way. When they started going the opposite way in the second half, they still found a way to draw up those plays, hit those explosives, and come out with a win. This would be a fantastic CFP rematch. It would be a fantastic SEC title game rematch. We'll see what happens from that. But cheers to Tennessee. Got this thing done. The fact that it actually happened at home, I think, was a monstrous deal. I can't wait to see what the TV ratings are. That's what I can't wait for. All right, moving along. We're not going to spend as long on the next ones. I promise. All right. Utah, 43, and USC, 42. Now, this one, You want to talk about crazy. Utah is a fascinating football team. USC kind of went up on them early, right? So there was a lot of scoring in the first half and then not nearly as much in the second half, which is kind of reverse from what you usually see. But when a game gets tight like this, you sometimes do see it where they play a little more conservatively or the defenses get a little more aggressive, and that's kind of what we had here. You had a ton of yardage. And yes, I mean, you did have a ton of points here, 43-42 in favor of Utah. Let's look at the actual stats. I'm going to pull them up on the screen, and we've got, let's see. This is the stat broadcast version. Here, while I'm actually reading off, I'll show you this. You see the win probability. It was in favor of USC all the way through until the very end. Like USC had taken control of this thing early and had held on to it until Utah grabbed it back. Utah did win yardage of 562 to 556. They won drive points 43 to 35. USC won yards per play 8.1 to 7.3. Utah did run 8 more plays than they did, 77 to 69. USC won third downs 56 to 54%. They won rushing 175 to 138. They won turnovers 1-0. But USC did have 2 fourth down failures. Again, you look at the team stats. Everything looks good. Everything's green, except for defensive run stuff rate and havoc rate. And havoc rate, USC actually did better than Utah. Utah's defense was not good. And that's the biggest question that we've got about this team is, why can Kyle Whittingham's team not figure out what to do on defense? I mean, it's kind of mind-blowing. I will say, for the people that jumped in my mentions last night that were discussing the officiating in this game, it was not a one-sided officiating game. This was a just bad officiated game. Very badly, very poorly officiated. And it hit on both sides. I mean, it was just all over the place. These Pac-12 referees are putrid. And you will see John Wilner and other guys like that talk about it. But there's no real solution that they can come up with right now. These guys are still, they're not full-time referees. And the way that the Pac-12 office does this, they're still trying to get a grasp on exactly how to filter in guys. They don't have a pipeline of guys that understand how to call games in the Pac-12, right? You don't move up from the Mountain West, etc. So that's where it becomes just a huge issue because it continues on over and over and over again because you have these games frequently. Just nuts. Cam Rising was 29 out of 43 for 415 yards passing, had 2 touchdowns, and he also ran the ball 11 times for 60 yards and 3 touchdowns. He also had that 2-point conversion at the end of the game that was just sheer will. Absolute sheer will. Travis Dye, 11 carries for 76 yards. Williams was 8 carries for 57 yards. Addison had 2 carries for 27, and you look at the receiving yards. So Caleb Williams, by the way, 25 out of 42 passing, 381 with 5 touchdowns. Just had a monster night. As far as the receivers go, Addison had 7 for 106 yards with 1 touchdown. Williams, had 4 receptions for 145 yards. And so where is Michael Jackson Jr.? Michael Jackson III. There we go. His 1 reception, 20 yards and a touchdown late in the game to take the lead. I mean, it was it was awesome to see. This was such a fun game to close the night on because there was so much passion in this one. As far as Utah's receivers, we talked about losing Keithy and how big of a deal that is because everything basically ran through him. And I said, not only on this show, but on the BetUS college football show as well, look, Dalton Kincaid can do everything that Keith could do, right? 100% everything that he could do. Had 15 catches for 217 yards and 1 touchdown. He was an absolute monster in this game. Absolute monster. So you look at what happened in this ballgame. I don't think USC is out of the playoff picture with a loss here. It is so difficult to win a game in Salt Lake City, especially at night. Rice Eccles Stadium, with all the stuff that was going on with the tributes to the fallen players, like all of that. It was a massive, massive deal. I don't think that this is going to cost USC really anything. Like, yeah, they'll fall in the polls for now. If they go out and keep winning, should not have any kind of an issue moving forward. But I got to tell you, it was strange to see. Just a bunch of ranked teams just getting knocked out of this one. I showed you the win probability. Yeah, it just flipped on a dime there. USC was basically expected to win this game all the way up until the last 8 plays. I mean, yeah, that's when it flipped. Like, that 2-point conversion is basically the only time that the numbers would have told you that Utah had a chance to win. That's it. So we will move off of Utah, and let's move to TCU. Now, this was a bonkers game. Absolute bonkers game. Zone 6, yeah, Utah now has won 23 of the last 24 at home. Yeah, the only one that they did not lose in that time span was 2020 to USC, right? They are insane in Salt Lake City. Really, really good football team. All right, moving along. Let's go and pull this up on the screen. TCU. And here, TCU wins 43-40 in double overtime. Now, we'll pull this up on the screen because TCU got their offense absolutely rolling late in this game, and Oklahoma State dropped off really after having a pretty big lead. You look at the we're not going to do the drive chart, but we'll do the scoring plays here so that you can see what we were looking at. Yeah, 24-13 at the half. It was 30-16. It was, I mean, they were up 24-7 at one point in the second quarter. This looked like a runaway. Oklahoma State came out guns blazing, right? The Pokes were on fire, and this was all happening at Amon G. Carter Stadium. I mean, you thought that TCU was going to come out at home because they were the home team. They were the ones that were supposed to come out, fired up, and it did not turn out that way. You look in the third quarter, and you had 2 field goals from Oklahoma State, and everything else was TCU. TCU had a field goal in the third, then they had touchdown and touchdown. Oklahoma State did not score in the fourth quarter. All of their offense came early. Like, think about this. Oklahoma State had 24 points with 10 minutes left in the second quarter, and then only kicked 2 field goals the entire rest of the way. Like, that, to me, says a whole lot. You've got a 60-minute football game. In the first 20 minutes, Oklahoma State put up 3 touchdowns and a field goal. And in the entire rest of the game, the last 40 minutes of regulation, they put up 2 field goals. And that's it. So cheers to TCU's defense for locking it down, for figuring out ways to get stops, for being, taking advantage of what Oklahoma State was doing. Kendre Miller was awesome. I mean, let's pull up the stats here. Spencer Sanders, 16 out of 36 passing, which is not super efficient, but 245 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Richardson ran 22 times for 72 yards. Spencer Sanders, 11 times for 68 yards. And here's the crazy part about that, which, by the way, Quentin Johnston, 8 receptions for 180 yards and 1 touchdown for TCU. Just awesome. Just awesome. Max Duggan, 23 out of 40. Again, not super efficient, but better than what Sanders did. 286 yards, 2 touchdowns. When you look at the team stats, right, you look at the time of possession. Now, we know the time of possession doesn't exactly matter, but in that second half, when you're going through that play-by-play and you're trying to figure out what happened to Oklahoma State, what happened is TCU took over, like just absolutely took over. 12 plays in almost 6 minutes. Even when TCU punted the ball, 7 plays, 3 minutes. Like, Oklahoma State could not keep the football. There was the big interception, of course. That helped out a lot. But all it did really was run clock. Like, that's it. So you look at what they were able to do in the second half. TCU, 8 plays, 94 yards, 3 minutes and 20 seconds. That was the one that actually got them the tie in this situation. So that Oklahoma State defense put up a fight early. but nothing so much after that. Oh, I have not read off the stats. Here, I'll go on and pull this back up on the screen for you so that you can see exactly what I'm seeing. But yes, TCU, they were favored by 4. They only won by 3. TCU won yardage 510 to 386. They won yards per play 6.1 to 5. They won rushing 226 to 141. Oklahoma State won third downs 35 to 23%. And Oklahoma State won drive points 17 to 14. Turnovers were 1-1, but TCU did have a fourth down failure. This was crazy. This was not what we expected, a really, really pointy game. And while we did get 43 to 40, this one was 30 to 30. And the total on this game was 68, I believe, 68.5, somewhere around there. A lot of people expected that this would be just an overfest, that we would see a ton of points. And I was one of those because the explosive play defense for both of these teams is pretty putrid, but they were not able to get things going. So I think this was a fantastic win for TCU, but both of these teams, the entire Big 12 this year, as soon as you get up off the mat from this one, you try and catch your breath a little bit. TCU brings in Kansas State next week, and Oklahoma State brings in Texas. So as big as this game felt, as big as this game was, you still got some monster matchups right after that. I mean, unbelievable. Just a great game. Cheers to TCU for getting a fantastic W. Before we jump into this, I see TriStar Sports jumped in. I think that Alabama drops behind all the undefeateds. I don't know about all the undefeateds. He said number 10 or number 11, and Zone 6 said Bama will be like 7. Yeah, I don't think there's a whole lot of I don't think that they're going to discount them a lot for going on the road and losing to a number 6 team in the country by a field goal, right? Like, I don't think that's a tough place to play, especially this year. Zone 6, Big 12, it has a lot of good teams, no elite teams. It's so fun to watch. Well, here's counter argument. What if they have a lot of elite teams? Just throwing it out there. We don't really know for sure right now. So, something to pay attention to. All right. We are going to start kind of rolling through these a little quicker because those were the 3 biggest games of the day as far as the most interesting. But let's jump into this one. Michigan, 41, Penn State, 17. And, I mean, let's do it. Let's go and pull it up on the screen so that you can see what we're talking about. I'll go and read through what actually happened in this ball game. Michigan was favored by 7, and obviously they covered that with ease. They won yardage 563 to 266. They won yards per play 7.1 to 5.2. Third downs 65 to 33%. Rushing 418 yards for Michigan to only 111 for Penn State. They won drive points 31 to 10. Penn State won the turnovers 1-0. That pick 6. Good gracious. But they did have 3 fourth down failures. This was really weird early because of fluky plays. Michigan was just dominant. Absolutely dominant. This team was everything that I thought they would be when I bet them to cover against Penn State. I really thought that this team was significantly better. Zone 6 jumps in. Michigan owned the trenches. Yes, offensive and defensive line, they were studs. There were fluky plays that happened. The Penn State quarterback had a long run for like 62 yards that gave Penn State one of their scores, and the other one was like an interception. Like, it's 23% of the day's offense happened for Penn State on that one play. That's nuts. More than 1/5 of their yardage came on that one play from Sean Clifford. So Penn State scored on a pick 6. Michigan, driving at will, settled for early field goals before pulling away late. Yeah, that was the issue early, right? You kicked 2 field goals when you got into scoring range. When you had scoring opportunities, you had to kick field goals. They were up 13-0. All of a sudden, you snap, and this thing is 14-13, and you're trying to figure out what exactly happened. And Michigan took over. Blake Corum was phenomenal. Donovan Edwards was phenomenal. J.J. McCarthy ran the ball 7 times, 57 yards, but Corum, 28 carries, 166 yards with 2 touchdowns, and Donovan Edwards, 16 carries for 173 and 2 touchdowns. I mean, just phenomenal. They didn't have to throw the football. J.J. McCarthy was 17 out of 24 for 145 yards. He did have the one pick, obviously, led to points for Penn State. Penn State flipped to Drew Allar, and he went 5 out of 10 for 37 yards. They could not figure out anything. Rushing the football, Nick Singleton ran it 6 times for 19 yards. Allen ran it 6 times for 16 yards. This was a whipping, absolute whipping. So, yes, Michigan looks like they are on the same path as they were last season. Penn State, I still think better than last year. But, man, when you go into the big house, you better be ready for a fight. And they were not ready at all. They did not have any of the stuff prepped for that. All right, let's hit this break. Texas, Iowa State is on the other side. Let's check out some things you should know about.
College football is back, and BetUS TV has you covered. Every Tuesday and Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern, we've got expert game analysis to help you make informed decisions before kickoff, only on the BetUS TV College Football channel.
Visit winningcureseverything.com to find everything you need to know about us, including full shows in video or podcast form, gambling picks, merch, the gear we use, and more.
If you want more content from me, Gary, visit BetUSTV.com. I host the How to Gamble on Sports show, and from August through January, the BetUS College Football show. You can subscribe to both on YouTube.
If you haven't already, subscribe to the podcast on Apple, Spotify, or whatever's your favorite podcast app. And if your app allows it, leave a 5-star written review.
Visit the Winning Cures Everything web store to get all kinds of football shirts, hats, hoodies, mugs, and more. Visit winningcureseverything.com/store to see what all we've added.
And now, back to the show. All right, so we're moving into Texas and Iowa State. Texas was favored at 1 point this week by 17 points here, but Texas get to win by 3 points. That's what Matt Campbell does. He drags you into the mud, makes you make mistakes. Incredible coaching job from Campbell to even have a shot in this ballgame because as far as talent goes, yeah, Texas way, way, way out ahead of them. But that's what they do, right? That's what ends up happening. 82 Atlantic jumps in. What record does Mike know? You know what? We're going to talk about that in just a minute. So the next game, we're talking about Clemson. So Texas, in this situation, did not look good early, right? They were down 7-0 early. They came out in that second quarter. They scored 2 touchdowns. They looked like they had taken back control of this game. Came out in the third quarter, only managed to kick a field goal. Iowa State was able to score points. Like that's in the second half, they figured out a way to score on this Texas defense. Looking at the team stats here, let's go on and pull it up on your screen so that you can see what I'm looking at. Iowa State outgained Texas in this one, 403 to 363. I mean, that is just bonkers to me, and it wasn't from rushing. Like Hunter Deckers actually was able to throw the ball pretty efficiently, to be completely honest. He did throw the one pick, and that obviously hurts, but let's go through what actually happened here. Texas won drive points. All of their points were drive points. So no short fields, no nothing like that from Iowa State. This was not a special teams, whatever. Yeah, I mean, the turnovers definitely hurt, right? That's the biggest thing is Iowa State lost 2 turnovers. So that's the biggest thing is that it really hurt them. Iowa State did win yards per play, 6.3 to 5.3. They won third down, 60% to 46%. We could say that Texas is lucky here, but when it comes down to it, like this team found a way to win when in years past they would not have been able to find a way to win here. Quinn Ewers in this, the typical numbers, 17 out of 26, 172, 3 touchdowns, didn't make the critical mistake. Bijan Robinson, 28 carries for 135, so not bad at all. Johnson ran 11 times for 71 yards, just nuts. So, yeah, Deckers, on the other hand, really impressive. I mean, he himself led the team as far as rushing yards go, 8 carries for 30 yards. He was 25 out of 36, 329 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. You look at the play-by-play, this thing got squirrely in the second half. Missed field goal. They did score 2 touchdowns, and then they get down there and they fumble. Just drove it all the way down the field. And, yeah, fumble at the Texas 32. And that ended the game, effectively. Texas was able to run out the clock. There were mistakes made by Iowa State. There were defensive mistakes made by Texas. That's the biggest way. So the turnover on downs early for Texas. There's a lot of stuff that I would have done differently if I were a Texas coach in this game. But the bottom line is, in Zone 6 jumps in here, Texas didn't play well but found a way to win. Texas stocks up. Yeah, that's the biggest thing that I take away from this is, in years past, you would have found a way to lose this game. You're coming back home. The entire world is telling you how fantastic you are, and you lose to a team like Iowa State. That is a very formidable opponent, even if they are now 0-4 in the conference. This is not a bad Iowa State team. There are no bad teams in the Big 12. Bottom line, there's just not. So, now Texas, of course, you survived this one. You start to feel a little good about yourself. You got to go on the road to Stillwater off of an Oklahoma State team that caught the bad end of an overtime game at TCU last week. So, which one's going to be more worn out? Who had to fight more? Maybe both. We'll see. But if you're Texas, you should probably win this game too. It's coming up. Just saying. If you're Quinn Ewers, you ought to be able to throw on that defense. Let's see. Win probability, etc. Yeah, this was a ugly game. Ugly game. But Texas found a way to win. So cheers to them. Cheers to Iowa State for fighting like they did. Pretty awesome stuff. Pretty awesome stuff. Clemson. Good gracious. Clemson 34, Florida State 28. Now, we did have 82 Atlantic jump in. What record does Mike Norvell have to finish with to keep his job? Zone 6 jumped in and said, he won't be fired, in my opinion. So I look at this as, Florida State is now a 3-loss team. They are 4-3 after starting off the year 4-0, but this was a really tough stretch for this team. So, NC State, followed by Clemson. I mean, they're beating the teams that they were supposed to beat. They are losing the teams that they should be competing with, and they are really, really close. The Wake Forest game, that was a tough pill, especially at home. But this is what you're trying to build at Florida State, right? You're trying to build a consistent competitor in that conference. And I think that they have gotten there now. This game in the second half, Florida State started to figure some things out, and they were able to eventually start putting up points, and that was all in the fourth quarter. They found a way to get back in this ball game, and that's a credit to them because they looked completely hapless early. And at Clemson, I mean, obviously, Florida State did the same thing in this game that they have done in all of these past however many games, right? You look at the yards per play, let's go on and run through it. Clemson was up 34-14 entering the fourth quarter. Clemson won the turnovers 1-0. Florida State also had 3 fourth down failures, so that certainly turns the ball over. Florida State's rally helped it win yardage, 460 to 370. Yards per play, 6.1 to 5.5. Third downs, 54 to 53%. Rushing, 206 to 167. And drive points. Florida State had 28 drive points to 14 for Clemson. They won yardage again. They won yards per play again. And that's something that a lot of bettors take a whole lot of stock in when you really look at them. But the bottom line is that Clemson dominated this thing early, and Florida State, by the time they were able to get things figured out and start moving against that defense, it was too little too late. Not enough time. Just not enough time left in the ballgame. Jordan Travis, eventually started looking really good. 254 yards passing, 2 touchdowns. He was 24 out of 42. But DJ Uiagalelei, 15 out of 23, 203 yards, 3 touchdowns. He has been awesome this year. I believe against their 3 biggest games thus far, he has 12 touchdowns and 0 picks. This is a complete shift from what he was doing last year. Now, does that say something about Tony Elliott? Or does that say something about DJ, coming back and looking pretty good? Maybe Brandon Streeter is the one that we should be giving credit to. But this was a great win by Clemson. Going on, Fitzpatrick jumps in, by the way. Big props to DJU. He looks completely different this year, a lot more composed in the pocket, a lot more sensible when running. Yeah, in this situation, they didn't have to run a ton of plays. Florida State ran a bunch of plays. 76 to only 67 for Clemson. But out of those 67, DJ only threw the ball 23 times. Like, Will Shipley was a monster here, 20 carries for 121 yards. This was awesome. Yeah, Zone 6 jumps in. DJ is so much better. It's not that he is, he's not Bryce Young, he's not C.J. Stroud, he's not Hendon Hooker. He's just a better version of himself. He doesn't lose the game for you and put you in crippling positions for your defense, right? And that's what you need when you've got as much talent as Clemson has, especially against this ACC schedule. I don't know that there's anybody on their schedule that will beat them this year. I just don't see it. They have got a fantastic combination of line play, and now they've got pretty good receivers, which was a big question for them coming into the season. So definitely a massive, massive win for them. You look at the win probability on the screen here. Yards per play, Clemson wasn't great, but everything else, pretty good. The explosive play rate, not a massive thing. Not a lot of defensive run stuffs for either team. Clemson obviously had more, but yeah, this was a big deal for Clemson. I think getting this last win, the schedule eases up significantly after this one, but Clemson looks like the real deal again. So I guess we better start looking out for Dabo and them Tigers when it comes playoff time. But we'll see. We'll see what the Coastal throws up in the ACC championship game. I mean, who knows who that might be at this point. Moving right along, rapid fire. Let's hit on as many as we possibly can. Oklahoma 52 and Kansas 42. And this one was a lot of fun, right? Just back and forth, tons of points. And how different does this Oklahoma team look when they have Dylan Gabriel at quarterback? Goodness gracious. Dylan Gabriel, 29 out of 42, 403 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Eric Gray, running the ball, 20 carries, 176 yards. Barnes had 21 carries for 69. He also had 2 touchdowns. I have said it over and over. This Kansas team, losing Highsmith and Jalen Daniels, those are almost irreplaceable players. They're not. This Kansas team does not have the talent to be able to handle those kinds of losses. And on top of that, this defense is still not good. Oklahoma had 701 total yards in this game. They could do whatever they wanted to the entire ballgame. Third downs for Oklahoma, 16 out of 21. And they went 1 for 1 on fourth down. They could do whatever they wanted to. They ran 100 plays to only 62 for Kansas. That's how efficient this Kansas team was. They only ran 62 plays, and yes, it was 82 Atlantic said Vegas was right having Oklahoma as a 7.5-point favorite. I mean, that thing got up to 10 at one point, which, of course, they won by 10. But, by game day, that thing was 10 on the dot. And, of course, it pushed if you took it at 10. But yeah, 76% third downs. Oklahoma won rushing, 298 to 165. Jason Bean did a really formidable job. He did have 2 interceptions in this game, but he was 16 out of 27, 265, 4 touchdowns. They ran the ball, 35 times for 165. That's pretty good, 4.7 yards per attempt. This Kansas team is still a good football team, but man, Oklahoma had a lot more talent, and that was a wounded animal. And you had to go on the road to fight them. Kansas, while we want to believe that this team was, maybe a Big 12 title contender, no. Not yet. Not yet. This was 2 bad defenses, and Oklahoma took advantage of it. Big time. Absolute big time. Moving right along, we have got Syracuse 24 and NC State 9. This NC State team is in trouble. They are in big-time trouble without Devin Leary. Chambers, 18 out of 30 for 160 yards. I mean, that is, it's not bad. I mean, 60% completion percentage, but, man, they just did not take a lot of chances. And even when they did, it didn't look good. So average yards per play for NC State was 3.7 yards. Now, part of this has to do with Tony White's defense with Syracuse. Absolutely awesome. I look at this and I see at 255 total yards for NC State, like this is what good defenses do. When you notice that the opponent has a weakness, you take advantage of it and you squat on them. And that's what Syracuse did basically this entire ball game. It was crazy to see a good Syracuse team. Syracuse now 6-0 on the season. Garrett Schrader in this game, he did have 2 interceptions, obviously. Kept NC State kind of in it a little bit early. But, man, 16 out of 25, 210 yards, 2 touchdowns. He ran the ball 16 times for 81 yards. And Sean Tucker, 13 carries, 96 yards, 1 touchdown, and he caught 4 passes for 14 yards. Gadsden, just bonkers. I mean, this dude was awesome. 8 receptions, 141 yards, and 2 touchdowns. This was just a monster game. Cheers to Syracuse. And now they go undefeated to Clemson. And we all remember Syracuse beating Clemson before, back a few years ago. This was not that long ago. I mean, obviously Syracuse has to get outside of the dome now. But, yeah, this is the kind of game that if you're a good football team, you are supposed to win, and they handled them. They handled NC State. Cheers to them. Cheers to Dino. Knocking this thing out. I was super impressed. Looking at the win probability, looking at all that, I mean, you see all that purple for NC State. The purple is bad. The green is good over at Game on Paper. This, they won yardage 389 to 255. They won yards per play 7.1 to 3.7. Third downs 50 to 31%. Rushing 179 to 95. Drive points 24 to nothing. NC State won turnovers 2 to nothing. This is crazy. Syracuse is 5-1 against the spread this year. People still underestimating. So we'll see what they look like against Clemson next week, right? I said that Clemson's schedule eases up. Maybe after Syracuse. We'll see what that looks like. But, whew, what a fantastic day in the ACC that was. All right, let's hit, Illinois 26, Minnesota 14, and didn't see this one coming. I'll be completely honest. Parker on the BetUS College Football Show did not see it coming. Illinois is a fantastic football team. Just bottom line. Like, they are what Ryan Walters is building on that defense is just insane. The fact that Tommy DeVito played in this game blew me away. And he had the ankle injury that looked horrible last week. It looked like a high ankle sprain, like he was going to be out for weeks. And he's back playing in this game. 3 carries for 17 yards for him. He threw the ball 32 times, 25 out of 32, 252 yards, 1 touchdown. If you have a competent quarterback in Brett Bielema's offense with Barry Lunny, you're going to be pretty good. And we see what not having a competent quarterback looks like on the other side. And that's not to say anything bad about Tanner Morgan. Obviously, he went out of this game. Who knows what the situation is going to be with him going forward. But he was 4 out of 12 passing for 21 yards and 1 touchdown. They bring in the backup, and I'm not even going to try and pronounce his name. I heard them say it multiple times on the broadcast. No idea. But he was 2 out of 6 for 17 yards and 2 interceptions. So even worse. The only person on the team, really, that did anything was Mo Ibrahim, and he was 15 carries for 127 yards and 1 touchdown. Like, even the Illinois defense could not stop him. Bielema doing a fantastic job. 82 Atlantic said, any chance Wisconsin rehires Brett Bielema? No, Brett Bielema is a big reason why they fired Paul Chryst, I believe. They hate Brett over there. They hate him. Zone 6 jumps in. It looks like Purdue versus Illinois for the West. It really does at this point. Purdue looks like a really good team, but I'll tell you, it does frighten you a little bit that Nebraska was able to hang around with them. And I don't know if that had more to do with Nebraska carrying more than Purdue, or if it had to do with the fact that Purdue is not a great football team. But we'll see. When Aiden O'Connell is healthy, like that team can play with anybody in the country. Just bottom line. But as far as total yards go, Illinois, 472 to 180. They shut down PJ Fleck's offense. Just shut it down. Yards per play, 5.5 to 4.3. They just kept the ball away from them basically the entire day. It was this was shocking, to say the least. 40 minutes time of possession for Illinois. They just sat on them. It was insane. Anthony jumps in over in England. Illinois were only giving up like 60 yards rushing a game. Seemed like a bad matchup for run-heavy Minnesota side. Yeah, absolutely. But also, Tanner Morgan had been pretty good, right? Like, pretty good so far this season. And I thought, honestly, with Mo Ibrahim coming back from that injury, he's their best. We saw how bad Minnesota looked in the previous game trying to throw the football because they didn't have that pass blocking help in the backfield. But when it comes to, and maybe that wasn't all it was. Maybe this team just feasted on crap competition. And no offense to those teams, but obviously you know when you're crap, right? Like I think we all know that. So yeah, Illinois, absolutely fantastic. Absolutely fantastic spot. This is Illinois dominated. I cannot wait to keep watching this team. I don't know what they're going to look like, but they were great. They got guys coming back from injuries. They got all kinds of stuff, and they look fired up. Yeah, Ibrahim still got 8.5 yards per carry. Yeah, but that's the thing. Like, they only had him. That was it. Like, where was the passing game? Where was all of the, they could not convert when they needed to. Their success rate was not good at all. So, all right, let's hit one more, and then we got to rapid fire through the last three. So, on the other side, LSU and Florida.
Let's check out some things you should know about.
Follow the show on Twitter at Winning Cures, and you can follow Gary at GaryWCE. You can also follow on Facebook.
Got your own podcast or web show? Looking to start one? Or you're just curious how we look and sound so good? Well, we've got all the gear that we use listed on our gear page on the website. And if you order using our links, you'll be supporting the show too.
Subscribe on YouTube to get not only full Winning Cures Everything shows, but individual segments and other goodies as well. We're over 6,000 subscribers, and our goal by the end of the year is 7,500.
If you're interested in advertising on a show that reaches over 80,000 unique football fans per month during the season, send an email to Gary@winningcureseverything.com, and we'll put together a plan that best fits you or your business. And now, back to the show. How about I unmute this thing, huh? LSU 45, Florida 35, and a game that was not talked about basically all week, except for certain factions of the college football universe. But the storylines around this were pretty massive. Billy Napier, of course, the former coach at Louisiana, got basically no call at all regarding the LSU job. And LSU went out and hired big money grip, Brian Kelly, doing his thing, spent a ton of money, and LSU comes out with this win. It was pretty insane, honestly. Let's see. Do you think Tommy Rees is regretting not taking the LSU OC job instead of staying in South Bend? Well, yeah, a little bit. Yeah, we can, I don't know. That's something that I've not thought much about that, honestly. You know what? I'm going to say no. He's not regretting that. If he wanted to continue working with Brian Kelly, he would have jumped at the opportunity. I think that he wanted to have the handcuffs taken off a little bit. He wanted to be able to be a little more creative. And while that's not exactly working right now, I think it could work down the line once he learns a little more about how to do this, right? So let's continue on with this LSU and Florida game. It looked early like Florida was going to be able to get this win. Let's look at the drives here. For Florida, it was touchdown, and same for LSU, touchdown. LSU had to punt one time. Like that, it's nuts. Florida turned the ball over on downs 3 times. They had to punt twice. Like, this was a scoring fest. Like, I think that's the best way to do it. Anthony Richardson, 15 out of 25 for 185 yards, 1 touchdown. He ran the ball 9 times for 109 yards, had that long 81-yarder. Florida did what they were supposed to do on offense. You look at Jaden Daniels, man, I am going to get this right one day. He had 6 touchdowns in this game, 3 passing, 23 out of 32 for 349 yards and 3 touchdowns. And then he had 14 carries, 44 yards, 3 touchdowns running the ball. Cheers to LSU for finding a way to keep this thing going, and they finally got Keyshawn Butte involved in this thing. 6 receptions, 115 yards. Malik Neighbors, 4 receptions, 48 yards. Like, these teams are doing well now. Like, good things. Like, LSU looks like a good football team. Looking at the stats here, LSU, 1 yardage, 528 to 395. They won yards per play, 7.5 to 6.7. They won third downs. They were 67% on third down. They won drive points, 42 to 21. Florida won the rushing battle, of course, and that partly was helped because of Anthony Richardson's long 81-yarder. Florida had 3 fourth down failures that I pointed to. This was an incredibly explosive game, and I did not foresee that happening. But I did say on the BetUS show that, I wanted to take LSU, but I can't trust them. Florida's run defense was what I thought was going to be the biggest problem. This LSU wide receiver core is coming into their own. You see all the guys on this screen that had catches here. I mean, Emory did fantastic things. 3 catches, 24 yards. Jenkins, 2 catches, 67 yards. Taylor, 2 catches, 33 yards. This LSU team is good. Like, zone 6, Daniels played his best game. This was a fun game to watch. It was back and forth. I'm curious about the defenses. What are the defenses going to do, right? Moving forward, I'm very interested because it doesn't feel like either of them can stop anybody. This is if you're LSU, you're hoping that you could come out the next week against a team that's not Tennessee, that's not not nearly as efficient, etc., and find a way to get some stops. And they just really didn't. They got stops on fourth downs, but when it comes down to it, I mean, you still gave up 35 points. I think this is going to be a telling game. LSU, of course, moves to 5-2, and they got everything set out in front of them. Everything. They only have 1 loss in the SEC, and that is to Tennessee. So really, LSU is kind of the same as Alabama right now. Just throwing it out there. Zone 6. So the SEC stopped playing defense. Kind of. That's certainly what it looked like yesterday. I mean, 52-49 in Knoxville, and then you got 45-35 in Gainesville. I mean, this is bonkers. Absolutely bonkers. All right. A couple more games that we got to hit on. Arkansas 52, BYU 35. We won't spend forever on this one, but definitely something to pay attention to with, another SEC team. And BYU always, I was so wrong about this BYU team. I don't know. I don't even know where to begin. The defense is not as good. The running backs, not as good. Christopher Brooks was all right, 10 attempts for 53 yards. The receiving core just never came into their own. They did have a big day yesterday. Cody Epps was 9. Here, I'll pull it up on the screen so you can see it. Cody Epps, 9 receptions for 125 yards and a touchdown. Puka Nacua, 141 yards on 8 catches for 1 touchdown. But yeah, Gunnar Romney didn't play. They just couldn't get any of their guys healthy. And I thought that this was a 10-win BYU team. I thought they were showing up because they had so many guys back. They understood everything that was going on. And Arkansas put up 644 yards on them, 7.9 yards per play. KJ Jefferson coming back, 5 touchdowns, 367 yards passing on 29 out of 40. He had 10 rushes for 32 yards. They tried not to run him too much. Zone 6 at Arkansas could have scored 90, but they called the Hogs off. Yeah, I memean, Arkansas only scored 1 touchdown in the fourth quarter. They had 45 before the third quarter. Just insane. That 24-point second quarter for Arkansas is where this all went south for BYU. BYU still put up 35 on Arkansas, so that's one thing. But, man, just Matt Landers, 8 catches for 99 yards. Trey Knox, 4 catches, 66. This Arkansas team is not just dead. They're not just gone. But, man, it sure looked like it when they had lost 3 straight and things had just kind of that loss at Mississippi State was rough. I mean, it was rough. All right, finally, let's cheers to the Hogs, by the way. Sam Pittman, absolutely phenomenal job over in Provo. That's a rough spot to go play. So cheers to you. Hey, an interesting video that came out. One of the Arkansas reporters said that he had never seen this before. Now we've seen it multiple times here, but the BYU school has greeters when the team arrives. So they're out there like shaking hands and being nice and everything. And I don't know if that is like a mental thing that they're trying to, kind of ease their opponent down, or if it's just what they do as far as their religious affiliation. Like, are they just nice to everybody all the time? Like, I'm very curious. I've seen this go on, and I've never thought about the mental implications or the mental impact when it comes to the actual game itself. So, something to talk about. You can hop in the comments with that. If you've not already, go ahead and like the video for me, and make sure that you are subscribed to the channel. Ever so close to the goal of 7,500 that I had for the entire football season. So go ahead and knock that out if you would so kindly. By the way, go and check out Valtameri Surf Company. There's a link in the description. Incredible clothing apparel. Just awesome designs. What it is basically college towns. And you can get like a Tuscaloosa Surf Company shirt. You can get Starkville shirt company, Norman, Oklahoma. All these kind of things. The designs are awesome. The fabric is phenomenal. Like, go and check it out. I'm telling you. Use the promo code Gary10. You can get 10% off of your order. ValtameriSurfCo.com. They are good dudes, and it's good clothes. So go and check that out. Last one that we're going to hit here. And this is one that I wasn't sure if I was going to talk about. And obviously, we're about to jump into the typical, run through, right? We're going to hit all these different games. If y'all want to, you guys can jump in the chat and tell me what games you want me to react to very quickly. But Michigan State 34 and Wisconsin 28. Let's pull it up on your screen so you can see exactly what's going on here. Michigan State gets a win, and they had to have it. Absolutely had to have this one, right? They were at home. There was nothing going their way. They were 2-4. Had just been absolutely whipped. And they finally figured out, just throw that thing up to Reed and let him go get it. Reed is going to do how about everything. I mean, just that team was so good. So good. 9 receptions for 117 yards and had the 1 touchdown. By the way, Keon Coleman, 5 receptions, 79 yards, 2 touchdowns. The basketball player, huge win for Michigan State. Huge win. JDH Mafia jumps in and wants me to talk about UNC and Duke. Yeah, okay, we can do that. I watched more of that game than I probably should have. Of course, you can see the multiple TVs behind me. I got TV there. I had way too many games on yesterday. But yeah, as far as like Wisconsin won rushing 152 to 99, I don't think that's a surprise anymore. Berger just is not getting this thing done. He wasn't bad, 16 for 59, but like Broussard, 3 carries, 6 yards. But Braylon Allen, 29 carries for 123 yards, 2 touchdowns. This one was bad for the Wisconsin crowd that wants to keep the coach, right? Like that's the situation here. This is the kind of game that you needed to be able to go on the road and get, and they couldn't do it. Like Wisconsin looked like they were dominating as far as the statistics go for a large portion of this game, and they couldn't get it done. Like that's the worst part. This team was they didn't do the things that you need to do at the end of the game to be able to get a win. And it went to overtime, and Michigan State found a way to get the win in overtime. Low scoring game. Like it seemed to fit right into Wisconsin's wheelhouse, and they could not get it done. Wisconsin's numbers for an overtime game, they had 283 total yards in a game that went to 2 overtimes. I mean, like, how does that happen? Both teams had 8 penalties for 72 yards for Wisconsin, 9 penalties for 102 yards for Michigan State. I mean, you only had, 131 total plays in this game? And it went to double overtime. Like, it just, this was an absolute perfect Big Ten game. Absolutely perfect Big Ten game. That's what it was. All right, let's move along. Let me pull up the scoreboard here. All right, North Carolina and Duke. I thought that North Carolina was going to be able to cover the 7. Cheers to Riley Leonard for doing a monstrous job in that game. That offense for Duke is legit because if you have a competent offense, you will be able to score on North Carolina. Miami. Come on. Memphis lost in overtime, 4 overtimes to East Carolina. That puts them at 4-3, and the schedule does not exactly get easy for the Tigers, so that's something. How about Virginia Tech with the backdoor cover versus the U? Yeah, I mean, it was Miami had complete and total control of that ball game, and nothing. I mean, just give up 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter like it's nothing. They just stopped fighting. Just ridiculous. How about Toledo coming back from 21 down? So that one was interesting. Let me pull up the MAC here. They were, 52-31. Yeah, early on, Kent State just was rolling them. Absolutely rolling. And then Kent State could not score in the second half at all. Toledo completely shut them down. Jason Candle's bunch is 5-2 overall in the season. They're 3-0 in the MAC. This is what Toledo should be doing every single year. Like, I'd be more mad if I was a Toledo fan. Like, obviously, you're going to enjoy this. But, man, you should be doing this all the time. You have more talent than anybody in that conference. So why were you not able to do it before? Like, that's my biggest issue with it. Ugh. Ohio, 33. Western Michigan, 14. Yeah, this was one of my bets. I got this. Ohio was actually an underdog in this game at the beginning of the week. And then it flipped over. Ohio was -1.5. And then it went back to about a pick 'em. You look at these two teams, there was no question which team was going to be able to score. And it was not the Broncos. I'll tell you that. The MAC was a lot of fun. A lot of fun yesterday. Let's see. We'll go back to the top 25, make sure we hit on everything. Oh, you brought up Tommy Rees. Let's talk about Notre Dame. That's not a top 25 team, but we can pull up the Pac-12. Notre Dame, and I believe Chris Felica put this out, or maybe it was Brett McMurphy, or I forget who it is. Somebody put out a tweet that said that Stanford and Marshall are 2-0 against Notre Dame and 0-7 against all other FBS teams. Yikes. Right? Like, this is, everybody thought Notre Dame had gotten things fixed. Like, where the hell was this version of Notre Dame when I bet against them with BYU last week? This Notre Dame team was awful. Tanner McKee just eating them up. 26 out of 38, 288 yards. Like, Filkins? Like, what are we doing? 32 carries for 91 yards and 1 touchdown? Like, at Stanford, Drew Pine was 13 out of 27 for 151 yards and 1 touchdown. The other guys, I mean, they ran 34 times for 150 yards. This was just an ugly football game. Yeah, at Zone 6 at Stanford was without 4 starting offensive linemen too. Well, yeah. I mean, they've had guys out for a long time. They were without E.J. Smith. Like, Filkins is a backup. Like, this entire team for Stanford is just not a good team. You look at what their record is. Yeah, it's 2-4, but look at the way that they got the 4 losses. I mean, yeah, last week they put up a fight against Oregon State, but that's Oregon State with a backup quarterback. They got smoked by Oregon. They got smoked by Washington. They got smoked by USC. They put up a fight against USC, but that's back when they had E.J. Smith. This was Stanford's first FBS win in 11 games. They were 0-11 before this. That should tell you something. Notre Dame has a lot of soul searching to figure out. This team is not overly talented, so that's something to pay attention to. But yeah, I mean, I think Freeman's going to figure out the talent aspect of it. But man, even without a bunch of talent, it's not like Stanford's got more than you do. 82 Atlantic. NBC regrets putting this game in primetime with the Notre Dame fans booing at the end. I think part of that is actually must-see TV, if you want to be completely honest. I enjoyed that part of it, for sure. I think at some point, like, if you're a Notre Dame fan, you got to be trying to figure out, like, what in the world. Hey, cheers to Colorado for their first win of the season. Now, it came under Mike Sanford, but, my gosh, could you imagine if Mike Sanford reels off, like, a couple of wins? And now I don't think it's going to happen. Let's pull up their schedule, see what they got. At Oregon State, nope. Arizona State, depends on the quit factor. Oregon, nope. USC, nope. Washington, nope. Utah, nope. I've got an under 3.5 ticket with quite a bit. Notre Dame needs to fire Reese, period. He's been there for 5 years. Reese has not been bad. Like, he's really not been bad. Like, he's been this year, but a lot of that could be the fact that the quarterback situation is so strange. Arizona, how about Arizona fighting back to cover against Washington? What a bunch of crap that was. Arizona's fun. Arizona's got a really fun team. I would not count them out of any game as long as they got Jacob Cowing and Jaden DeLaura. Period. You 82 Atlantic asked about Kentucky and Mississippi State. All right, State only scored 17 points, and 7 of those came from a pick six late. That's what I think about that. Mississippi State going on the road is akin to Alabama going on the road, it feels like. That defense shut down Will Rogers, 25 out of 37, 203 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Yes. Like, I just 82. I jumped in on Colorado plus 15 right before kickoff. I'll tell you this. You ain't going to get me to bet on Colorado. No. Like, I understand Cal, like, as a double-digit favorite. I get that. But that Colorado team was bad. So back to Kentucky. Like, Will Levis playing in this game, 17 out of 23, 230 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. That was impressive against that Mississippi State defense. Zach Arnett is pretty awesome. But here's the thing. When you have got a coaching staff that understands how to break down that 3-3-5 defense, you're going to have these. Chris Rodriguez, 30 carries for 196 yards and 2 touchdowns. Didn't see it coming. Zone 6 and Mississippi State doing what they do. That's exactly what happened here, because Kentucky ran the ball 48 times for 239 yards. That's what won them the game. Period. Mississippi State was not able to run the ball at all. 10 times for 22 yards. Like, they only had the ball for what? 40? No. Hold on. How many plays? It wasn't many. Ran the ball 10 times, threw the ball 37 times. 47 offensive plays for Mississippi State. They had the ball for 20 minutes. Like, Kentucky, Mark Stoops is a phenomenal coach. He just is. And I don't know why I continue to doubt this dude. Time in and time out. Like, the roster doesn't make a whole lot of sense. This team does not look good as far as numbers go. And yet, week after week after week, I am left looking like an absolute fool. And I don't know why I don't just accept that Kentucky is the abnormality. That's what they are. They got a week off, and then they get to go play at Tennessee. Tennessee plays UT Martin next week. Is that defense good enough to stop Hendon Hooker? I doubt it. Hooker put up 45 points on them last year. 82 Atlantic, what happened with San Jose State? God, you had to bring them up. That team is garbage. I am done with San Jose State. Hopefully Coach Brennan ain't watching this one. But, yeah, I was pretty irritated. I know he was really irritated. He looked as animated on that sideline early as I have seen him look in a long time. And where did we go? Oh, Mountain West. There we go. This is all you need to know about this. You see the headline there? Fife rallies Fresno State to 17-10 win over San Jose State. Logan Fife threw a go-ahead touchdown pass to Nico Remigio. That's what you need to know about this one. Cordero, 22 out of 44, 50% completion percentage, 294 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. They couldn't run the football. San Jose State, 23 carries, 37 yards. I think they had more carries or more yards per rush against Auburn, to be completely honest. 36 carries for Fresno State for 103 yards. And Logan Fife, 22 out of 32 for 230 yards with 1 touchdown, 1 pick. Fresno State kind of dominated this game. I was so irritated. I mean, you saw early, it was punt, 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 punt. San Jose State interception, Fresno turnover on downs, punt, fumble, field goal, touchdown, punt, fumble, touchdown. There were so many opportunities for San Jose State. But this is something to pay attention to with some of these teams that haven't been there before, that don't really know exactly what the situation looks like when you are the projected favorite, when you are the one. Now, Fresno has been there before. They have been the big dog in the past. They were just without Haener for a long time. But the situation here has to do with San Jose State not ever having to feel that pressure in the past. Once they got a big win over a broken UNLV team last week, everybody jumped on them, myself included, and Kyle on the BetUS show as well, because we assumed that San Jose State defensive line was going to basically dominate everybody going forward, and Jeff Tedford found a way around that. Just period. And that Fresno State defense that hasn't looked great all year, they finally showed up. And that's the big issue. They were at home. This was a bad time to bet against Fresno State. And I did it anyway because I'm an idiot. So I really did think San Jose State was going to go, 10-2, 11-1, whatever. And they still might. But, man, this one did not look good for it. Did not look good. All right, let's continue a few more, and then I have to get out of here. Pull up those scores again. Anything that we have not discussed, anybody in the chat want to bring up? Georgia, 55-0 over Vandy. Yeah, well, you knew that was coming, right? We already talked about these. Oh, Ole Miss Auburn. 48-34. Lane, you cost me this one. That defense, putrid. Absolutely putrid. Auburn should have never scored 34 points in this game. I am so out on Ole Miss being able to cover. That defense for Ole Miss is bad. They are not so sneakily crappy, right? So, cheers on that one. We already talked about all the rest of these. Oh, James Madison coming in for the first time ranked ever and losing at Georgia Southern. That's entertaining, right? 82 Atlantic. What about Navy plus 12.5? Yeah. Here's what you need to know about gambling. Because I was initially thinking, you know what, my handicap on this was just wrong. It was just wrong. No, it was not wrong at all. What you need to know is when you are handicapping against a bad defensive team, the bad defense is always on the field, even until the very end of the game. So anything can happen when you have a crap defense. And that's what happened with SMU. Robert jumps in, Memphis versus ECU. So, all right, let's pull up the American. Let's pull this up. Let's go through, and we'll look at Memphis, and I'll go on and pull up Navy as well. All right. You can say that we got lucky with Navy, but bottom line is you're not lucky when a Navy offense throws for 138 yards and 2 touchdowns. Like, SMU's defense was bad. That's what we were betting against. That's exactly what happened. Doesn't matter when the touchdowns came. The handicap was right. SMU was not 13 points better than Navy. Period. All right. ECU. So ECU had a bunch of injuries and this and that, and obviously that hurts in a situation like this. But if you are Memphis, the 2-point conversion situation where you are running the football straight up the gut, you know that the only thing that works for this team appears to be Seth Hennigan throwing the ball. And don't get me wrong, you don't want to have to rely on that, but I don't trust this coaching staff. Like, I don't know exactly what to do with this. I look at So let's pull up the team stats here. It's not like they had bad stats. Memphis' stats are always good. It's what you do in late game situations that irritates me when it comes to Memphis, right? You get down here and Memphis had to fight back. You know, ECU fought back because Memphis, again, took a big lead, 17-0. And then you can't hold it. And you can't do anything. And you allow Holton Ahlers to come in and throw for 400-something yards, or 300-something yards, 304 yards, 1 touchdown. You allow them to run for 169 yards on you. At the end, they are just stunting all over you. They are doing the dances and all that. Like, they knew that they could do anything they wanted to on offense against that Memphis defense. It was putrid. And this is what Memphis is now. So, it's irritating being a guy that's from here, but it is what it is. Like, until they figure this out, like I want Silverfield to be good. I have not seen it yet. That's what irritates me. Anthony jumps in. Shocked Old Dominion trounced Coastal. OD seems to be that team this year who just pulls results out of a hat. Yeah, they are. Man, the Sun Belt is just weird. There we go. Sun Belt. All right. So Louisiana over Marshall. Like, what is that? Georgia Southern over James Madison. Like, where did that come from? Old Dominion over Coastal. Like, here's the deal. Coastal's been playing with fire a lot. A lot. Zone 6 said, was Matt Barnes a bad hire for Memphis? No, I don't think so. I don't think they were a bad hire. Or he was a bad hire. He's still really young, right? Like, he was calling the defense for Ohio State towards the end of the year last year, and no, that defense was not great, but man, they had a lot that they needed to change, and it's tough to do that in the season. He's still a young guy. So I think he's going to help you get players. That's the situation here. Ryan Silverfield can recruit, and that staff can recruit. They have got the most talent that they have ever had on that roster. He has set a record for recruiting like 3 straight years. But if you don't know what to do with it, then you got a problem, right? Like, that's, I think Nick Saban talked about that not that long ago, 2018, I think it was, where you had a bunch of recruiters, but you didn't have the guys that could actually develop the players. And that's kind of what Memphis is running into right now. Like, recruiting is important, but is it as important as scheme at the American level? That's a question. Old Dominion, like, Coastal had been playing with fire. They had just absolutely been playing with fire, and that defense is not great. They're just not. So, where is it? All right. So, yeah, Grayson McCall, 26 out of 34, 358 yards, 3 touchdowns. They were great. They could not run the football. This was something that was brought up. I brought this up when I bet against them with Georgia Southern a couple weeks ago. The Gardner-Webb game gives you a lot that you need to focus on. Because Coastal only ran for 1.2 yards per carry against Gardner-Webb. When you have a defense that can figure out that running game, it slows down everything else that Coastal tries to do. That if you've got it's much the same as a service academy, right? When you have got a service academy that somebody's defense has figured out gap schemes and what they need to do to stop that triple option, there is nothing on the planet that those teams can do. It's kind of the same with Coastal. They have at least got a quarterback that can keep them in some games, but that quarterback, the way that he runs, the way that that game is run, he is basically it all comes down to whether or not they can run the football. If the other team ain't scared of the run, what are they going to do? And then on offense, I mean, Wolf, good gracious. I mean, just unbelievable. Allie Jennings, 6 receptions, 87 yards, 1 touchdown. Like, they were able to run the ball. That Watson kid, 18 carries, 256 yards, and 3 touchdowns. They ran the ball 31 times for 324 yards against this Coastal Carolina defense. This was always going to happen. Like, it's not like it gets easier for Coastal. Look at their schedule. They played Army, Gardner-Webb, Buffalo, Georgia State, Georgia Southern, and ULM. Now, let's look at the rest of this. ODU, Marshall, App, Southern Miss, Virginia, in James Madison. I'm telling you, this team is about to be a 4-loss team. Maybe more. I don't know. They could probably they could beat some of these. They could beat everybody left on the schedule. They could also lose to everybody left on the schedule. So that is one to certainly watch in the Sun Belt. Troy got to stop. Hey, how much fun is Thursday night going to be? Good gracious. You see what we got. We have got the Sun Belt West title game on Thursday night in Mobile. Boy, if I could be there for that one. Oh. South Alabama and Troy, these are the two best teams in the Sun Belt West. I don't think it's close. I really don't think it's close. If Troy gets through that one, they've got Louisiana, which is going to be tough. Yes, obviously, but this Louisiana team is kind of, whatever. Paul Wall jumps in. Michigan, 418 yards rushing against Penn State. Yeah, it was a bludgeoning. Absolute bludgeoning. Army, they've got Louisiana Monroe, and they've got at Arkansas State. Like, I think Troy can get this thing done based on their defense. That Troy defense is awesome. Yeah, I'm a big fan of this. Who else have we got? Southern Miss, just keeps finding ways to win these super tight games. 20-19, they should have won by more. They were the significantly more talented team, I think. But, man, let's look at the Big Ten. Was there anything that I missed here? Now, Nebraska-Purdue. Nebraska's showing some fight, man. I think there is a real possibility that Mickey Joseph could get that job. Like a real possibility. Selling it basically as the Sam Pittman model, like the Dabo Swinney model. We'll see. Pac-12, I already talked about all those. Oregon State over Washington State. Look, Washington State's offense, Oregon State's defense is really good. Really good. Jonathan Smith is doing insane things. They're 5-2 right now, but they don't lose at home now. Like, they have turned Corvallis into a nightmare for other teams. The ACC, North Carolina, yeah, found a way to get it done at the last minute, but man, look at these Duke numbers. Like, what Mike Elko has done, and he brought in Johns from Memphis, their offensive coordinator. Riley Leonard, 20 out of 31, 245 yards passing, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. Here's the biggest thing: 42 carries for 297 yards and 4 touchdowns. Just unreal. North Carolina should have been able to score more points, but man. Which Group of 5 coach not named Luke Fickell is next up for a Power 5 gig? All right, so you've got your Jamie Chadwell, of course. I think that Kane Womack from South Alabama is certainly going to be up for a job because he has turned that thing around quickly at South Alabama. Along with that, let's pull up some of these G5s. There's stuff that's probably not coming to my head on a Sunday morning. Let's look at the Sun Belt. So I think people were really high on Charles Huff after that Notre Dame game. I think that he's come back down to earth a little bit. Ricky Ronnie, the head coach at ODU, like, if they're able to win, like even make it to a bowl game in their first year in the Sun Belt, then yeah, he's going to be up for a lot of jobs. Of course, former Penn State offensive coordinator. So he's been around the block. He knows these big-time universities. They've got Georgia Southern, Georgia State, Marshall, James Madison, App, and South Alabama. I don't think they're going to make a bowl game. If they do, look for him on some of these lists because he's somebody that could actually really do a good job there wherever it is that he goes. I think it has to be the right fit. I think Will Hall will eventually get some look in Zone 6. Will anyone hire Hugh Freeze? Yeah. Auburn. Just keep an eye on that. I don't think Auburn's going to fire Brian Harsin during the season. They don't have a good interim coach situation. Like, so if you're going to pay the man anyway, just let him coach out the season and then fire him at the end of the year. Like, the team's fighting. Like, they're at least somewhat competent. So, like, the defense isn't any good, but regardless. Looking over in the American, I clicked Big 12, didn't I? All right, looking in the American, Gus Malzahn, he's not going anywhere. Rhett Lashley's in his first year at SMU, and if you got a defense that bad, no. Mike Houston at East Carolina. Tulane, Willie Fritz is 6-1 now with a win over South Florida. And by the way, like, Jeff Scott, he might really be in trouble. Like, I don't know what the buyout situation is. I don't know if South Florida wants to buy him out right now. But man, yeah, losing these games at home, like, just ridiculous. So, but Tulane, that's one to look out for. If Lance Leipold ends up taking another job, Willie Fritz could jump in where Leipold was and do a pretty good job at Kansas, I think. He would at least keep them competent. So that's one to pay attention to. As far as some of these others, I don't think anybody in the MAC, maybe Sean Lewis, at Kent State. But I'm still sold that if they keep Jim Leonard, then I think they'll try and hire Sean Lewis as the OC. Of course, he played at Wisconsin. He's somebody that could maybe modernize that offense. In the Mountain West, Brent Brennan is somebody that you might look at for Colorado. I think Troy Calhoun from Air Force could be somebody you look at for Colorado as well. Other than that, there's really nobody in the Mountain West that you would pay attention to right now, I don't think. Conference USA. Jeff Traylor, I think, is going to stay at UTSA for a while. I think unless there's something that opens up in Texas, like if something crazy happens and Dave Aranda went to Wisconsin, Baylor might try and hire Jeff Traylor. Like, they'd have to pay a lot to get him, but, we'll see. Other than that, no. I think the G5 stuff, you are seeing that the G5 hires have not really been working. So why would you continue to do it, right? All right, we've gone an hour and a half. We're going to get out of here. You guys have been absolutely fantastic. What an incredible weekend of football. I am so excited. NFL hops on in an hour. So, if you want to watch more football, you can do that. I will be digging through numbers, getting ready for the betting lines to open up here in just a little bit. So that's my plan for the day. Going to be a good day. I went 4-2 on my BetUS picks, so pretty good year so far. Thus far, we'll continue on. It's come back down to earth a little bit, but that's okay. That's what happens. All right, let's get out of here. The show brought to you by BetUS, of course, America's premier online sportsbook. Go check them out, BetUS.com. Make sure you get signed up over there. Tons of great bonuses. Fastest payout as far as offshore books are concerned, like all kinds of stuff. So go and check out BetUS.com. Anthony Fitzpatrick, thanks, Gary. Enjoy your weekend. Yeah, I'm going to try to. I'm sure going to try to. I got a little more work to do. So there's no off days when it comes to football season, but I will sure try. So my toddler will be home in about 10 minutes. So I got things that I have to knock out. Faux show. All right, gentlemen, make sure you are subscribed. Make sure that you like the video. Of course, share it out. Tell your friends. Grab the podcast when it comes out here in just a little bit. And with that said, we got a show on Tuesday. We got a show with BetUS on Tuesday. We got a show with BetUS on Wednesday. And I'm going to do the Winning Cures Everything picks again on Wednesday night. So make sure you tune in for that. With that said, maybe I can get over this cough. We'll see. We'll see how things go. With that said, take care of yourself, take care of each other, and hopefully all your tickets cash this week.
Thanks for listening to Winning Cures Everything. Make sure and subscribe on YouTube or your favorite podcast app, and make sure to leave a nice 5-star review. You can follow Gary on Twitter @GaryWCE, and the show is @Winning Cures. Be sure to check out the merch in our web store and share the